Welcome back to the Third Wheel Podcast at Night. I'm Caleb, joined once again by the lovely Heather. Say hi, Heather.
What's up, guys?
That's it. What's up, guys? And we don't have technical difficulties this time. The camera just works the first time because it's my phone, and you can't really mess up your phone, can you? Yeah, I was just telling you about today I watched that SpongeBob episode, The Wet Painters, and you're telling me that's the one where SpongeBob and Patrick paint Mr. Krabs' house, and you're describing how it gave you anxiety. Can you explain why?
Because the whole time I'm waiting for them to get paint on his very first dollar. And
Yeah.
they do, and it's a tiny speck, and it's horrible.
Well, my favorite part is when, but before we get to my favorite part, there's a part where like it's a tiny spot, and Patrick's like, I think you're overreacting, SpongeBob. I don't see any paint, and he's like trying to scrub it off, and he
Oh
spreads
my
on
god,
the whole
that's
thing.
literally the worst part of the episode.
And then Patrick's like, oh no, I see it. After it's already covered the whole thing.
Oh my god.
My absolute favorite part though is Patrick's ranting. He's like, "This is all Mr. Krabs' fault. Like, if you didn't hang that stupid dollar on the wall, it's not like it looks like any different from any regular dollar. Why hang it? You may as well stick any old dollar on the wall. No one even know the difference. You may as well just reach into my wallet, pull out a dollar, and hang it on the wall." And this Sponge was like, "Great idea, Patrick. Take out your wallet." My favorite line. He was like, "I don't see where you're going with this. Hey, a dollar."
I forgot what happens at the end. Was Mr. Krabs like, oh, that's not actually my first dollar?
No, he was BSing them. Like you could get the paint off when you
that's
lick
right.
it. But he's like, this
he
paint comes,
licks it.
yeah,
That's
it's like,
right.
paint comes off with saliva.
It's like water-based paint,
Yeah.
which like is like the paint that you use for like kids' crafts that comes in like the little plastic containers.
I got a rant for you here. Okay, you brought up water-based paint. You actually unlocked a core memory. And
I just cannot imagine painting a wall with water-based paint.
Okay, no, here's the thing. Water-based paint means nothing. Okay, because like I was at Maddie's family's place for Thanksgiving, and they're painting with water-based paint.
Yeah.
And they splashed paint all over my shirt, which was a very nice shirt. We took to Disney World.
No.
And it was green on blue, green paint on a blue shirt. And then Maddie's like, "It's water-based. Don't worry about it." I was like, "Oh, I don't know what that means." Right?
Yeah.
So I stick it in the washer, and it's still in there. There's still paint on my shirt to
that
this
happened
day.
to me recently. My friends were doing paint by numbers, and like I'm an art student. I'm not trying to go to the dollar store and do paint by numbers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And I wore my yoga pants that were like nice yoga pants from like Bougie Athleisure website, and I totally got paint on them, and it also did not come out.
Yeah. And it's like, well, it was
And
like,
they were also reassuring. They were like,
right. And they're like,
"It'll
"Oh,
come
no,
out."
it'll come out. It'll come out." I'm like,
It
with
didn't
what?
come out.
With saliva? Do I need to lick?
Yeah, do I
My
literally
shirt.
need Mr. Krabs' spit for this one? Like,
It's like, well, I mean, I could do better than Mr.
Yeah.
Krabs. You start licking your own yoga pants. Someone's like just watches you
yeah. Do you ever get caught doing something really weird?
all the time. I think my fiance was back there laughing because yes, the answer is yes.
I
Well,
was
what example comes to your
walking
mind?
down the hall. So, guys, there's something you should know about me. I live with my parents, and I'm also 27 years old.
Cut.
And
Stop.
it be
Get out.
like that, okay? The economy's rough out here. And I was
that's
walking down the
definitely it.
hall, and I was like holding something in my hand, and I had like a hair in my mouth, and I was like, I like want to get out of my mouth. So I was like, maybe if I like lick my arm, the hair will come off on my arm. And so I was like holding stuff, so I didn't want to like use my finger to get it out of my mouth. So I'm like licking my arm while I'm like holding something while I'm walking, and my mom is like, "What are you doing?"
You remember that time? Well, this one's definitely my fault. You remember that time
She
I
said,
brought
"What's wrong with your arm?"
nothing?
Like I'm a dog tending to my wounds.
You're just more like it's more like a cat.
Or a cat,
You're just
yeah.
grooming yourself.
Yeah, I'm just grooming myself, Mom.
No. Okay. Do you remember that time? Were you there? I brought Maddie to group, and I was jokingly pretending to nibble on her nails, but to everyone else, it looked like I was sucking her finger.
I think I kind of remember that.
I think you were there for that.
I remember y'all doing like some freaky things in Monday group when y'all first started dating.
Okay, I got a
Y'all were
couple
just
things
like
to say
very
about
physically affectionate. I was like, I'm so happy for Caleb. But y'all are like so all over each other right
yeah, we're a little too much. I agree, but I'm glad to say those times have not stopped.
That's good.
I quit nibbling her nails / sucking her finger, but we also do other equally embarrassing stuff.
Okay,
You know,
good.
You can quit laughing, interrupting our show, babe. Anyway, Back on track here. We're back finishing up this list here. I had planned to get into this book with Heather today, but I don't know if we'll get there. We'll see. I slated her for 2 episodes, and this article ended up taking more time than I thought. So, but I'm not mad about it. It's a good discussion, I think. I think we've got some good experiences here. I don't plan on getting into my personal life as much this time. Okay, I got some experiences. Yep. We talked about online dating. So was that your worst story, the one you shared last time with online dating, or do you have a really bad date that you had, or a really bad guy you had met when doing it?
I really didn't online date very much. Like the most I did it was in college, and I went on like 5 dates, and like they just kind of didn't lead to anything. It's just like I don't have very much in common with this person. I don't really have a connection with him.
Just no chemistry.
Person. Yeah.
So here's something I learned. Now, I don't regret how it unfolded because it kept me single long enough till I met Maddie. But before that, I was really looking for a big texter. And I was like, if they're good over text, they're good in person.
I remember that.
Which is true.
To an extent.
But at first, Maddie wasn't great at texting me.
Yeah.
And I went ahead and asked her out. And that date went so much better than our text life did. You know what I mean? And eventually the text caught up with the in-person conversation, so the texts are great now. But at first they really kind of weren't. So what I realized, I was like, maybe I passed up some people that I don't regret it. Like I said, it was great. It kept me single till Maddie came along. But I'm wondering now if I gave up on people too soon that I actually could have connected with better had I went ahead and said, hey, let's meet up for coffee in person. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I might have ruled people out prematurely.
On the other side of that, I'm the one that people rule out because I'm also not a very interesting texter if I don't know you.
Right. Yeah. So that's something I don't regret, but I was like taking that into consideration, and now I kind of feed that into if someone's asking me well, they're just not that interesting. Well, meet up for coffee first. It's kind of influenced how I approach that subject now. It was but because before when I had someone say that, I was like, hey, yeah, you're right, bro. If you're not talking over text, you're not going to talk as much in person. It doesn't get much better. Wrong. Wrong. I was wrong. And I think now if someone were to ask me, it's not that everyone's dying for my relationship advice, but it does come up. If someone were to ask me, yeah, bro, just give it a chance. Give it a date. Give it 2 dates. Me and Maddie, I think, connected a lot on the first date, and that really set the stage for the future. But now I'd even say give it 1 or 2 dates.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And just kind of go from there.
I wasn't even sure that I liked the guy that I'm dating now after the first date.
Right.
We got dinner, we watched a movie, and then after the movie, he was trying to kiss me in the movie theater, and I was like,
bruh, chill.
I don't know if I necessarily wanted you to kiss me right in that moment. I mean,
was
don't
it
get
when
me
someone
wrong,
was getting brutally murdered?
Your beard oil smells amazing. It smells like vanilla and flowers.
Is he using Spartan? That's the best brand.
I don't know, but it smelled like vanilla and it smelled delicious. But and then I was like, I don't really know how I'm feeling. But we went on a second date, and then after the second date, I was like, oh my God, this guy's so cool.
I'm sorry, I missed that. He tried to kiss you on the first date?
Yep.
Ooh. Okay, I know how that story went because you just told it.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about that in general, kissing on the first date?
I think it depends on the vibes. If the date's going really well and you're reading the room correctly, maybe you could go for it. Yeah. But I think it's best practices to maybe just to be safe, wait for the second date.
For me, there was a girl, this was during the online dating phase, where I could tell she was really into me and I wasn't feeling it. But I was like, I could kiss her if I wanted to. And I did. And that bit me in the butt.
That's horrible.
No, it was. It bit me in the butt later because she caught feelings already.
Yeah,
because I guess asshole. I was so. I know. I don't deny it. I was being. That was really wrong of me and jerky of me. And that really fed into how I treated people in the future. My dad sat down and talked with me about it. He's like, bro, you confused her.
Yeah.
And I was like, and he was right. I admit that was wrong. But that was the second girl I had been interacting with ever. The first girlfriend had dumped me. I finished the police academy, and then she was the first girl I started talking to after that. I didn't know anything. I was 24. I had waited too long to kind of date around. So
you're like, give me some sugar.
I wouldn't have said it that way.
You're like, I just need a little something.
I didn't need.
I've been out of it for so long.
I didn't need words, Heather. I just went for it. I didn't have to say anything. I just went for the.
Yeah. Oh, that's how it sounded, huh?
Yeah, I was like, "Wapa."
What's the rest of this list we're looking at?
Yeah. How to tell. Now, this looks like a biased list. This is from Cheaters.
Yeah.
Actually, now I'm kind of curious. So it's written by men, I can tell, because it says signs he's cheating. He's cheating by cheaters. So let me look at the percentages here. On average, who cheats more, guys or girls? Which I know the answer, but I want to see what the numbers are.
Definitely, guys.
I said I know the answer. You didn't have to say it like that. Okay, we were gonna get there. You just spoiled the ending. More. I'm using one hand because the other hand's holding a beer. Guys or girls? All right, men. the thing, like if you just look at it, it just says men.
Yeah, much larger type point.
Men are more likely to cheat than women. 20% of men and 30% of women are reported to have sex with someone other than their partner while still married. Though that jumps straight into married, not even just relationships. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Number 7. So these are signs, 15 tail signs. See episode before to check out the first half of this list, which we're not even halfway through. So number 7, he has an overnight change in musical taste.
That one sounds lame. Let's just skip it.
No, I want to read this. I want to know what this man has to say here about this musical taste. What he said: I've never really liked jazz, but I struck up with this woman who we enjoyed it together. I started listening to it all the time just to think about her. There's nothing wrong with trying new things, but when it's out of the blue and he excludes you from the change, it's one of the warning signs that something is amiss and he may be cheating on you. Okay. If overnight, Heather, I really just started listening to yodeling, right? And I was like, this is good. And it's like, yodeling, yodeling. And I was like, this is good. And then she's like, can I listen? I'm like, no, I like this. Stay away.
Yeah.
That's definitely a red flag. You know what I mean? I would never listen to yodeling.
It's like a.
That's not true. There's a
like a
SpongeBob episode where
brown
Patrick was
flag.
yodeling and he's climbing on top of the light bulbs. You remember that? He's
On
trying to get
top
the
of
light
light
bulb.
bulbs.
He's trying to get the light bulb for the clam that they're
Oh
raising.
my god! Yeah, I do remember that.
The clam egg, yeah. And he's like listening to yodeling. I was
That's
like, I
crazy.
like that. It was like 1.5 seconds of yodeling that I really liked. And I was like, I kind of want to see what yodeling's about.
Okay.
Never followed up on that hobby. But if I suddenly started listening to it and I didn't, and I excluded her from it, like that'd be suspicious, right? It'd be a red flag. Would you say?
I think it'd have to be in conjunction with a lot of the other signs for me to consider it a red flag.
Yeah, you wouldn't be suspicious though if he wouldn't want you to like it, you start listening to yodeling, right? And you're like, okay, this is cool. And you want to talk to him about it, and then he's like, I don't want to talk to you about it, but he's
That'd
still
be kind of
listening to
weird.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you're trying to take an interest in
If
what
your
he's
partner
interested
has like a
in.
new fixation, they
Yeah.
want to tell you about it. You know.
Yeah, and he's like, no, I don't want to talk to you about it. Or he's not
Yeah.
interested.
No, that'd be weird.
Yeah, just a little bit of red flag. You know what I mean? What's the music genre you don't like listening to?
Metal. I don't like metal.
You don't like metal?
I don't like the sound of screaming.
Well, there's a difference between metal and screamo. So is it just screaming you don't like?
I like rock.
Okay, so you like
But
rock, but you
I
don't
don't
like.
necessarily like
You know, Twisted Sister. They
when
do.
you
We're
can
not going
hear
to take
their
it.
how sore their throat's going to be afterwards. you
Yeah.
know?
Okay, that's fair. All right, cool. Number 8. He suddenly needs a lot of privacy. What he said: I was working from home and I started closing the door more often, saying that the kids were loud or that I just needed to work quietly. I was online chatting with my mistress. Taking time for oneself is normal, but when it's out of the normal pattern or becomes more and more frequent, it could be a sign that something else is going on. Going into work early, you'll never catch me doing that. If I do that, then I'm cheating. Leaving late, I do have to leave late sometimes.
Yeah.
Getting off the phone suddenly and taking a lot of private calls from a relative are also red flags.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Wait, why is that a big one?
Getting off the phone suddenly? Like, why would they not want you to hear their phone call?
Oh, that's the part. I heard you say that's a big one on the second half of like taking a lot of private calls from a relative, and that's like, oh yeah, that's a big one. That's the part I heard you say.
I just don't think anyone calls their relatives that much.
that is true. I certainly as heck don't.
Yeah.
But I have a buddy that calls me like 3 times a day, and
Yeah.
I pick up and I answer.
But you don't hang up if Maddie walks in.
No,
Yeah.
no. But yeah, that's true. Like if she walks in, I'm like,
Yeah.
with that exact face. That I'm so exaggerated as a person. That's the face I would make. Lock it up, you know.
Yep.
So, Yeah, if nothing else, if he closes the computer real fast, that means he was chatting with
Oh
someone
my god.
or watching.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes. So okay. So
Anyone who quickly tries to obscure their computer
okay, are we
screen.
finally getting something to where you'd be like, okay, something's up? Are we finally hitting some
If
like
he's
red
like
flags?
actively trying to hide something from you,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, maybe it's cheating, maybe it's not.
But
But
he's
at that
hiding
point,
something.
if you shouldn't never be trying to hide something from me unless it's like a surprise birthday party.
Yeah.
Like, what secrets are you trying to keep from me?
Or
You know?
or a proposal.
If you trust me, yeah. If you
which I
trust
was-
me, yeah.
Sorry.
If, like,
Yeah, you were there for that.
if you trust me, why would you conceal it from me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. Like when I was hiding going to the casino.
Yeah.
and it
Unless
worked,
it's like something small and kind of innocent. You
it
know?
worked in our favor though because I won a lot of money.
Something you're like embarrassed about. Like,
Number 9, he hides his financial transactions from you. That would be a big one.
that'd
I
be a
think-
big one. I can understand wanting to keep your finances private.
Yeah.
Like if you're not married yet.
I mean, if you're married though, like you're basically sharing bank accounts.
If you're married
Yeah.
though, that's a pretty big red flag.
Yeah, like he's like, don't check the bank. Well, how would you hide that though? If you're married and you have a joint bank account, what's the best way? I'm asking for a friend. What's the best way to hide your finances? Like, how do you go about doing that if you both have access to it? Would you open another card? Would you start using gift cards? Like, what would you do? You know what I mean?
I don't even know. I've never had a joint bank account before.
Yeah, but I'm trying to picture, like, how would I go about trying to hide that from somebody? You could possibly exploit them not checking the bank account that much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, like, before, I didn't check the bank that much. And now I like looking at the numbers. I keep saving a lot for the
Yeah.
house. And I like looking at it. But before, I was bad with money. And I didn't like looking at it because I was scared about how little I had in the bank account.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I could possibly take advantage of her not checking her bank account if she's in a similar situation. But how would I go about trying to hide what I'm doing financially? You know, like how come you went to Olive Garden and Red Lobster? And I listed like 2 crappy restaurants, but how come you went there twice this week? You know what I mean?
You would have to have a separate bank account, or you'd have to like really make sure your purchases weren't raising any eyebrows.
Yeah. But even then, your bank starts sending you financial statements too through the mail. You know what I mean? So she's like, "Where's this Chase account coming from?" I don't use Chase and I hate them, but like, but she knows that, so it would be like a red flag. Like, why do you use Chase all of a sudden? You hate them. Like, I'm cheating on you. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, number 9, he hides his financial transactions from you. What he said: I was meeting her for lunch almost daily, and our hotel visits were 3 or 4 times per week. Okay, see, you can't hide that either. Hotel transactions. Why are you staying at the Marriott once or twice a week? You know what I mean? Or on the weekend. And that goes into like he has all this time that he's gone unaccounted for. Those are 2 like that are kind of running hand in hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Covering what was very difficult. I opened a PayPal account. Okay, PayPal is kind of private.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't even think about that. If only I had read 2 sentences into this, I wouldn't have had so many questions. Got a PayPal debit card, attached a personal checking account into my PayPal account. I would make online transfers into PayPal, and she couldn't see any of my transactions. Okay, that's how he hides the transactions. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But if she's looking, she's like, okay, why are you transferring to PayPal every so often, you know?
Yeah. She would still see the transfers.
Most cheating men will need an untraceable way to pay for things like gifts, meals, hotels, and trips. Trips. If I'm gone for a couple weeks at a time, I'm obviously doing something. But some people travel for work, so I guess that could help out.
Yeah.
Reloadable credit cards, PayPal or Venmo accounts, and eBay purchases are all great ways to hide large or frequent transactions. Definitely investigate any large, random transfers or cash withdrawals he hasn't told you about.
Yeah.
I will say I do tell Maddie before I buy something dumb, and when I say dumb, I mean expensive, that I'm going to buy something dumb and or expensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's nice.
Because if I don't, it's going to, she's going to see it and wondering why I spent so much money at Cabela's. Or, you know, be like, why isn't he telling me what he's buying? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Raise red flags.
Yeah.
So, number 10, he has new friends at work and or more work responsibilities. My company allowed me to work from home if I choose, but I started a relationship with a new manager at the office.
Ugh.
I started...
Mommy.
My job, we have an hour and a half lunch.
Yeah.
That is that's too long. That's plenty. If I was a scumbag, that's too much time to go do something I'm not supposed to. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And clean up afterwards.
What do you mean, Heather? God. Let's see. I started going to work more often. When I extended my business trips a day or before or after I actually needed at a remote site, extended office lunches and late hours. So he's like, hey, the work trip's actually 4 days, not 3. I'm going to be working Monday as well. It's going late. That's an easy way to do it.
Yeah.
Office affairs are very common, especially considering how much time we spend working together. He might mention his new friend to dispel any suspicions you have. If you pop into the office unexpectedly, or might even introduce you to his coworker to throw you off the scent, follow your gut and pay attention to his other behaviors. Because, okay, here's the thing I would run into if I was a scumbag cheater. Time management. So not only would I confuse dates and get them flipped and be like, hey, Maddie, remember that time we went to the zoo? And she's like, no. I'm like, oh, shoot, that was the other girl. I would also have a hard time squeezing it in. Okay, so it would have to. Oh, my God. But at work, like, you know, that actually was like, that's a time saver because I'm getting paid to cheat. You know what I mean? So it's like, I could see how that could be a go-to.
Cheat while you work.
Yeah, I could see how that could be a go-to for a male of
convenient
lower honor than I. Okay, that makes sense to y'all.
Yeah,
I'm a little tipsy, guys. With my second beer. I'm so sorry, but it's already hitting me.
It's 1.5 beers in, and he's feeling it.
Why do you call me out like that? Getting
feeling
tipsy
now,
on
Mr. Krabs.
A beer. Yeah, I feel something. I'm feeling a warm spot.
Oh God.
11, he becomes secretive with his technology. I think that kind of fits into the other one.
Yeah.
iMessages on the iPhone are untraceable on cell phone bills. I would only text my mistress when it was safe and then delete the messages immediately. To this day, my wife doesn't know how I communicated with my mistress. Well, I guess he's not that sorry.
All these scumbags on here, man.
I know. Well, it's probably the same guy. No. I bet you each one got a respective cheater to be like, oh, this is how I did it.
Yeah.
He's like, bro, we need 15. Like, give me one more good way to do it. So I didn't want to send emails which are traceable, so we established a new Gmail account and communicated in the drafts folder without ever sending anything. You can do that.
I didn't know you could do that.
You could not send a draft and have it like, dang, that's pretty smart.
But how does the other person see it if it's just a draft?
I don't know. I kind of want to Google that, but my phone's recording you. Oh, wait, I got a computer right here. Sorry. Hold on. Can you send a drafted message? I don't know. It doesn't say. Because most of them, if it's a draft, you want to hit send after. It says just click send. You know what I mean? So, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't understand.
That's pretty smart. So somebody had to have like really experimented with Gmail and kind of go to town. So
yeah. I guess so.
Technology is now smarter and affairs have gone high tech. New passwords on his phone or computer. Password changes at your bank or phone company or phones being left in the car were once easy to spot signs of infidelity. These days, alternate email addresses, Gmails, or Facebook accounts are an effective way to hide messages, but he will still hide his computer and phone from you, so that's a sign you can't miss. So in order to catch, this is harder to detect, but in order to catch it, you got to catch him when he's like, oh, shoot, and closes his computer.
Right.
You know what I mean? You got to catch him hanging up with his cousin a little bit sooner. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Plot twist, it's actually his cousin. He's from Alabama.
And the plot twist is he's cheating on you with his cousin.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the joke that I made.
Oh. You're way ahead of me. That's disgusting, Heather.
I said plot twist, it actually is his cousin. He's from Alabama. And you said plot twist. It actually is his cousin.
Look, okay, I've had enough of these unmarked containers of liquid.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just sparkling water, guys.
Yeah, it's sparkling alcoholic water.
Yeah.
Number 12, he downloads new apps or starts using specific social media accounts much more often. What he said, I downloaded Snapchat on my cell phone to communicate with her. I don't like Snapchat in general.
I don't like Snapchat either.
It is. I like it in the fact like it's got a lot of cool features to send texts.
Mm-hmm.
And like when it's been read, it has that cool like animation of you like looking up and above, like like checking for text. That's cool.
Yeah.
But there's too many apps to keep up with, bro.
Oh my God, I hate getting notifications from Snapchat.
I get Instagram Reels, I get Facebook messages, I get text messages, I get freaking emails. I'm like, I'm not doing Snapchat. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
It's too much.
Yeah. Let's see. Cheaters often fly under the radar by using technology to do their communication dirty work. Apps exist that allow text messages, online chat sessions, and pictures to last for a certain amount of time and then disappear. See, that Snapchat, it deletes them. It's real easy to cheat if somebody wanted to on Snapchat because it just hides the evidence for you after 24 hours. You know what I mean? And you can
Yeah.
set it to where it's not notifying you every time you get a snap. You just know to check it every so often.
Right.
So pay attention to new apps on his cell phone he doesn't let you know about. I mean, you can check it if I want. You can check my phone if you want to, but there's a ton of crappy apps on there. There's an app that I use to have water delivered to my house.
That's cool.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
like, imagine if I used the social function on that to cheat. That'd be
Yeah.
funny. Like, in between jugs of water being brought to the house.
They're
I'm like,
delivering water, but they're also delivering a good time.
yeah. The water boy comes up and I'm like, hey, you're the one I called for. You're the one I've been texting.
Yeah.
All right. He acts secretive. Number 13. He sets his phone down or shuts it off just as you approach. He refuses to give you details when he goes out. He avoids questions or never answers them or answers them with another question.
I think that would be the biggest like singular thing for me, is if he was just really secretive about everything in his life all of a sudden, where he
Right.
was, what's on his phone, what's on his laptop, and he was just super vague and not giving me details.
Yeah.
I think that would be the biggest thing for me.
Okay. And that's not even considering the other red flags, right? That would just be a big one for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if there was going to be one that was like a standalone sign, that would be it. It's like, because you shouldn't feel the need to hide anything from them
I think that is totally fair.
if you trust them.
I think that's a big one. So, I mean, Maddie's always sitting right next to me when I'm texting, so it's just like,
Yeah.
you know, hey, may as well join in on this conversation. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, yeah. Let's see. But the answering the question with a question, what does that look like? I'm trying to picture that. It could be because I've had too many of these, but I'm trying to picture like when he refuses to give you details when he goes out. He avoids questions or never answers them or answers them with another question. I can't picture that. What does that look like?
I think that would be like if you're like, well, where were you after I texted you and you didn't text back? And he was like, well, why are you so concerned about it? You know?
Okay. Huh. Why do you care all of a sudden? Why
Yeah,
all of a
like-
sudden you write in
Yeah.
my
Where were you? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Gotta redirect.
2 more, and I think we're actually on time. Number
Nice.
14. Physical signs of cheating. He has rapid change in his weight or appearance.
Oh.
Okay, that's actually different. After I started my affair, I dropped like 10 pounds in about a week. It was crazy.
Ooh, that's
Really?
is that possible?
Is that because I'm conscious? Oh, it's possible. I've lost the most I've lost in a week is 7 pounds, and I'm a bigger guy.
But
so-
15.
That's yeah. It says no. You said 10.
Oh.
It's I dropped 10 pounds in about a week. Now a lot of that's water weight. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, sure.
but cheating men change physically. Their love handles disappear, their posture changes, and their muscle tone definition returns. It's the body's primal means of preparing for courtship. He's readying himself to attract a mate.
Is it because he's burning a lot of calories from having sex?
I don't know, and I'm a little skeptical of that one. I get taking better care of yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where I was like,
I
no,
think it's probably more that.
right, and that resonates with me a bit. It's like I like to look good. Now sometimes I let myself go, which you've seen me in both states. You've seen me somewhat skinny and also very massive and weighing a ton. Right? You need
Yeah.
a forklift to get me to my car. I like to look good. Okay, I'm wearing these goofy suspenders today that you probably can't see in the camera because I watched this movie by the new Guy Ritchie film with Henry Cavill, and they were all wearing suspenders. And as soon as the movie was over, I talked my mom into coming with me to the store and buying these bad boys. And now I like how I look. So I like looking good. Okay. Is that a sign I'm cheating? I don't think so. No. But alas, here we are. That doesn't make sense to me though. Maybe it's because he wants to look good. He's like, trying to look better for the other woman.
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to be like he's trying to act the way he acted when he met his wife. You know what I mean? There's that excitement. There's like, I gotta look good. I gotta do it. I gotta impress her.
Yeah.
If he starts to do that again, it's
Oh, yeah.
it's not with you because y'all been married 10 years, right? He doesn't care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
He wants to
I think that's what that means.
attract her.
Last one, number 15, then we can get to the book. He has a massive increase in libido. What he said, after I started up with my mistress, I started sleeping with my wife much more often. She told me I was really aggressive in bed and that she hadn't seen me that way before.
Ooh.
All the men I interviewed expressed experiencing a huge rush of testosterone, which manifested as a newfound confidence. They felt strong, masculine, and virile. Like every woman wanted them, their egos grew larger by the day. I experienced that now, but it's only because, like, the first couple times I had a girl tell me, like, I'm a really good kisser, I'm really good at whatever, then that really boosted my confidence. So I was like, okay, she liked it when I, wrapped my arms around her, and I accidentally shook the whole thing. Sorry. She liked it when I wrapped my arms around her, you know what I mean? That gave me confidence. So I know what that means. Obviously, I've never been in the cheating phase. I've never cheated on anybody, but I know what they mean.
Doesn't that contradict one of the previous points in the article
What was the other one?
their sex drive goes down?
It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
So like
I guess it's saying they could both
Right.
be a sign.
I don't think you could do both. I think you have one or the other. Like if he did something cool with the mistress and now he takes it home to his wife and he does the same cool thing, it's like, wow, you've never done that before. And it's like, because the other girl brought it out of me. He won't say that, right? But that's the reasoning. Whereas with another guy, he's doing things that he never did with his wife. So he gets home to his wife who's like plain Jane vanilla, and he's like, I just don't want to do it at all. It's not worth the effort. I think that's what that's saying. I don't know.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We are going to pause for a second while I get ready for the book. So give me a second, guys. We're going to set up for that. So, all right, guys. Thanks for joining us and holding with us and bearing with us on that break. Okay. I want to get into this book. I've been wanting to get into it for a long time. This is called Marry Him, The Case for Settling for Mr. Good Enough by Lori Gottlieb. Really good book. Very solid. It's funny. But I want to throw in some disclaimers. So Heather was gracious enough to agree to hop on the show and talk about this book with me. I'm a little nervous about reading directly from the book. I'm going to, because she makes some really good points. But I've made it a really good point to write down questions and also write down points to stop and ask Heather what she thinks. I don't want it to be just me reading into the microphone. And I'm a little worried about balancing it. So Heather, like, if you have something to say, please stop me and let's talk about it. Like, if you have a question or something,
Okay.
and go like that. So the prologue, the husband store. So this is a joke she tells. A new store has opened, a husband store. There's a sign at the entrance. You may visit the husband store only once. There are 6 floors, and the value of the products increase on each successive floor. The shopper can choose any item from a particular floor, or go up to shop on the next floor, but she cannot go back down except to exit the building. So a woman goes into the store. On the first floor, the sign on the door reads, Floor 1, men who have good jobs. Well, that's nice, she thinks, but I want more. So she continues upward, where the sign reads, Floor 2, men who have good jobs and love kids. She's intrigued, but continues to the 3rd floor, where the sign reads, Floor 3, men who have good jobs, love kids, and are extremely handsome. Wow, she thinks, but feels compelled to keep going. Floor 4, men who have good jobs, love kids, are extremely handsome, and help equally with the housework. Well, it can't get better than this, she thinks. But then a voice inside her asks, or can it? She goes up and reads the sign. Floor 5, men who have good jobs, love kids, are extremely handsome, help equally with the housework, and have a great sense of humor. Having found what she's looking for, she's tempted to stay, but something propels her to the 6th floor, where the sign reads, Floor 6, you're a visitor 42,215,602 to this floor. There are no men on this floor. This floor only exists to prove that women are impossible to please. Thank you for shopping at the husband store. Please note, to avoid gender bias charges, the store's owner opened a wife store right across the street. The 1st floor has wives who love sex. The 2nd floor has wives who love sex and are kind. The 3rd floor has wives who love sex, are kind, and like sports. The 4th, the 4th, 5th, and 6th floors have never been visited. And then she puts...
My version, look great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm good here.
We're all good, baby.
Yeah. So now, granted, Heather, I want to also throw in a disclaimer. I didn't invite you on here because I think you exhibit any of these things that she talks about.
Settling.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah.
Oh, the opposite of settling. Being too high.
I don't think you're hard to please on anything like that. I just thought you'd be a good discussion piece. Cool. Darcy would be too, and she hops back on. And then of course we'd love to have you back on at some point. But This book also, disclaimer, written by a woman. So before y'all throw in some sexist stuff in there, I didn't write this, and neither did a man. This was a woman who did some studies and all that kind of good stuff. So, okay, so now she lists a bunch of her. Did you have anything you want to say on that? That was a pretty good joke, I thought. So, let's see. Okay, here they are. The qualities off the top of my head and in no particular order that would be on my shopping list if I visited a husband store. Okay, and this is her when she was younger. This is her list, right? How do you feel about lists, though, in general, to be honest with you, when you're like thinking of what you want in a partner?
I think they're kind of irrelevant because
Irrelevant, you'd say. Okay.
each person is going to be different.
That's true. That is true.
No one, not even including your history of partners, is going to match every item on the list.
That is very true.
You know, like my first boyfriend was very verbally affirming, very warm, very like calling me baby, saying I love you, telling me I look pretty all the time, and like really made me feel special, right? But the other side of that coin was that he was also possessive. He's like, yeah, you're mine, you're the greatest in the world, but also you owe me the same devotion that I'm showing to you. And you don't get to have your own life, pretty much, right?
Yeah. And I'm sure he didn't use those quite exact words, but people that feel that entitled, like even if he didn't say that, but he showed it with his actions.
Like on the one hand, he's very passionate, and on the other hand, that intensity bleeds over into like the negative traits as well.
Absolutely.
So it's like, okay, so I want someone who's really verbally affirming and doesn't hesitate to like want to go all the way with me, you know? And then people like that might also, who have that like alpha energy, might also be a little bit unpleasant at times, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, so my second boyfriend wasn't like that. I was like, thank God. He's not possessive. He's not controlling. If I don't tell him where I am during the day and don't text him for hours at a time, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
He was also very verbally affirming, so that's nice too. But then he was like super like extreme political, religious. I like didn't feel like I was like allowed to disagree on him with things if we disagreed.
Right.
He was like, basically, if I told him my opinion, he was like, no, you're wrong. You know, so he was kind of entitled in his own way. And then he wasn't like controlling, like jealous, but he was controlling in a sense that if I like left him out of anything in my life, he would get really offended and be like, you're excluding me. Like, like I go to church with you on Sundays. I see you on Monday group and I see you on Tuesdays at the group at your church.
I remember that.
Yeah, and then I didn't want him to come to my Thursday group because I just need to be with my friends. I just need a day to myself, right? And then I'm going to see him on the weekends anyway.
Yeah.
And he got so butthurt that I didn't want to include him in 5 days of my week instead of 4 days of my week. So it's like, okay, so that was his flaw. He's like a little overbearing.
So with that, you were looking, it sounds like early on you kind of learned like what parts didn't matter in a relationship and what parts actually did matter. Like, okay, the first guy is way too possessive, like way too jealous. And the second guy, I don't even know what to categorize him as. Like
he's his own category.
Yeah, he was his own thing. You know
I just had my love goggles on because I'd been single for so long and I was honestly getting a little desperate.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know all that before you kind of told me about it. Yeah. But I was definitely like, oh yeah, dude. Like, I mean.
Yeah. He was also pretty close-minded and our senses of humor didn't mesh at all.
You mind me saying, and if not, I can cut this out. Like, don't worry. But I would also like to point out that he even broke up with you, which was surprising to me.
Yeah,
because he didn't. It's not like he had like a ton of options lining up to date him. No. So I was like, bro, you're being kind of picky here. He was almost living out this book.
Bro's got the weakest chin in the ballpark. Let me just say.
I was just say he was kind of living out this book, but as a man. You know what I mean? So like
he thought just because he was 6'4" and used nice shampoo that he could just go right along to the next girl.
And how old was he again?
I think he was 28.
Right. He wasn't like a young guy like a young guy who had like a ton of options. You know what I mean?
I think he was 3 years older than me.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know. I just didn't know what his deal was. I was confused. Like I remember you and I were talking and trying to process it. And I was like, I don't get what's going on here.
Yeah.
You know, it was a surprise to both of us.
And now this guy that I'm with now is like so much better.
Yeah.
Like our senses of humor go together really well. I feel like I can completely be myself with him. I don't feel like I have to like be an ultra Christian version of myself or be an ultra secular version of myself. I can just be me.
Yeah.
I don't have to like pretend that I want to go to church 5 times a week. And I also don't have to like pretend that I don't go to church at all, you know?
Yeah, and I will say that's one thing about you. Like I said, I don't think when I read this book about people that are women that are hard to please,
Yeah.
I don't get those vibes from you. I actually think you're quite the opposite. You're very much like, well, things aren't going good, but I'm sticking it out. Like, okay,
A little too much sometimes. Maybe.
maybe,
Yeah.
but
A little bit of
again,
anxious
that's for
attachment
you to
there.
decide about yourself. That's not
Yeah. Which I will
everyone's
decide
different.
in time. Yeah.
Exactly. So,
But then this guy is like not very like verbally affirming. He's not always very like good at meeting my needs, in
Mhm.
terms of like affection.
mhm.
So it's like, okay, finally I found a guy who's not controlling, who
yeah,
lets me be myself, who isn't gonna judge me if I like want to go to the bars with my friends, who isn't gonna be jealous, who isn't gonna ask me where I am, who
Every
actually
3
has things in
seconds.
common with me, who is more aligned with me, like in terms of our values,
Mhm.
politically, stuff like that.
right.
We never ever really fight at all. But then he
Yeah.
like struggles to be really vulnerable with me sometimes. And like, I don't know, I just wish he would like call me babe sometimes. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Yeah. See,
Be a little bit warmer. Like I initiate a lot of the dates. I wish he would be like,
Right,
let's go on a
yeah.
date this weekend, baby.
mhm.
Like be a little bit more
Yeah.
romantic. So
That-
it's like everyone has something, and when you have a list, you're forcing someone to meet every single one of those things. But everyone has a thing.
yeah.
Everyone has a thing.
And I definitely fall into that category of like I need to be more a little bit more spontaneous, or like need to plan the dates more, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Because I like being comfortable, so I have a habit of like, the past couple date nights we've been watching TV and we're finishing a show up, but I'm also like that's, I'm trying to I like that one date scenario. So I was like I want to keep doing that, but. She has brought up like, hey, like I wish you took more initiative on planning stuff, and I was like, okay, that's a fair thing to bring up, and it's
Yeah.
great that she wants to communicate it with me too. She was like, here's something I think you could do better, so she shares it with me. So,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And even like my parents, like who are very happily married, I've never been like worried that my parents were gonna get a divorce or anything. They love each other very much. Like they love each other and they have a lot of things in common. And my dad's pretty affectionate towards my mom
Yeah.
and likes to take her out on dates and like treat her like a princess. But then the other side of his thing, because everyone has a thing, is that he has a really short temper. So if he like loses the remote, he's like yelling and screaming
flipping out.
like as if we're the ones who lost the remote. And we're like, Dad, calm down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So it's like when you make a list, you're setting this expectation
right.
that you're not going to have to compromise on
Mhm.
it, on anything, because this person's going to meet all of your needs and they're not going to let you down or be a flawed human in any
Right.
way. And so lists are harmful and kind of irrelevant for that reason, because with each person, first of all, it's a day by day thing, getting to know them and figuring out what you have to navigate with them. And then whatever flaws they do have, it's like a case by case of like, is this something that I can work with? My mom decided she could work with my dad's temper, and that's great for her because
You
she's
gotta
the most patient person
You
on
got to
earth.
slow down here. You're going through the whole book on your own without even having to talk about it.
Okay, sorry.
This is really good stuff here, but it's too early. We're on the prologue. It's not even chapter
Okay.
1. You know what I mean? We only got 15 minutes. All right. So this is her list when she was younger. All right.
Yeah.
She wrote it down. Her friend challenged her to write down the list real quick. She says, okay, here, if I was in the husband store, here's what it would be. Intelligent, kind, extremely funny, curious, loves kids, financially stable, emotionally stable, sexy, romantic, passionate, compassionate, irreverent, intuitive, generous. I think these are in alphabetical almost. Same religion, but not too religious, right?
No.
Optimistic, but not naive. Okay.
Yeah.
Ambitious, but not a workaholic. Talented, but humble. Okay. Like these are very specific. Oh my God. This is 3 pages. Warm, but not clingy. Grounded, but not boring. Soulful, but not new agey. Vulnerable, but not weak. Quirky, but not weird. Free-spirited, but responsible. You get the idea?
Yeah.
I don't have to read the
Yeah.
whole thing. You're getting it, though. But last but not least, I wrote this in my notes here. Is madly in love with me. That's like the most important one, I would say. And that's at the bottom of
Yeah.
her long list. So I don't even think I was halfway through reading it to you, right?
Right.
Okay. So she says, actually, this isn't my current list, but this is why I start off with when I sat down to write this book. I never made a list before, but a married friend put me up to it. I told her I didn't have a list, but she insisted I did, even if it only existed in my head. So she's like, you do, but, just write it down.
Yeah.
Right. So then she wrote it down. She said it took me 3 minutes to write all this stuff out. Right. Then she said she took it a step further. Hone down the list to make it more realistic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I gave it a try. I crossed off some easy items. He doesn't have to know how to cook. Plus, he could always learn. If he's 5'7" instead of 5'10", I can live with that. Like,
Yeah.
what if you're 5'6" though? You know what I mean?
I think the shortest guy I've ever, for the record, guys, I'm like 5'10", 5'11". I'm 5'11". Okay, I'll just say it. And the shortest guy I've ever made out with or had feelings for was like 5'6".
Oh. Oh. Okay, cool. See that, guys? That's how tall I am. You can do it. You just
Yeah.
gotta shoot your shot sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So she said, I can't quantify what I'm looking for. I always just fell in love. So she tried to cross off easy items, right?
Yeah.
She could live with someone 5'7" instead of 5'10".
Oh, yeah.
Even as I eliminated some qualities, I found it hard to get rid of most entirely. So maybe I could compromise on funny, but where do you draw the line between a funny guy whose banter makes your heart race and one whose sense of humor merely just kind of makes you smile? On a sliding scale, how much passion would he need to be considered passionate? So as she's honing it down, she's already kind of asking herself some questions like, okay, so what's too passionate? Like,
This is getting really nuanced. Yeah.
Right. So then she says, in the past, I dated a freelance artist only to say that the next time I wanted someone financially stable, right? So she dated an artist, and it's like, okay, well, there's no money. He doesn't have a job, right? He's only taking commission.
Yep.
But then she's like, I dated a doctor, but we didn't connect creatively. Finding a financially stable artist or a doctor who wrote novels in his spare time wasn't impossible, but pretty rare, okay? Let's see. And combine that with all the other characteristics I wanted, not to mention chemistry. Like, that wasn't even on there. And she's like, well, shoot, we don't have chemistry. Suddenly, the mystery of why I was still single was solved, right? So she's realized she's overthinking it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she's like, yikes, her friend. Like, what if my friend was right? Had I overlooked men who might have turned out to be great husbands because I was drawn to an instant spark and a checklist instead of a solid life partner? Of course, I wasn't completely clueless. By the time I hit 30, I knew that nobody was perfect, including me, she said, and that whoever I married would be a flawed human being like the rest of us. I wasn't expecting perfection so much as an intense connection. So she started focusing, and I think this is what I started doing. I was like, I need a connection.
Yeah.
Like the other stuff, like I like horror movies, for example. If she doesn't like horror movies, like that sucks. But like, it's not it's not a deal breaker. You know what I mean? Like horror movies are a niche. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you have a niche thing? Like it's on your wish list, but it's not like a deal breaker. You know what I mean?
Like a niche thing that I like.
Yeah, but like, it's not a deal breaker if the guy doesn't like it. Do you have something like that? It's not as fine. If your boyfriend loves everything you like, that's great. But
we do have a lot of things in common. He likes horror movies.
Yeah.
I don't like gory horror movies. I hate like bloody, disgusting, gruesome stuff. So I won't watch
My
those with
favorite.
him. But I'll watch like the more tame stuff with
yeah,
him.
that's cool. So, but what about you? Does he have something you like that he doesn't like? But it's not a deal breaker, obviously, because y'all are dating. So
maybe it's like some of my music taste is like a lot more niche than him.
I don't even know what kind of. I mean, I know you like Post Malone, but what is your like favorite genre of music? Then I'm kind of curious.
So
Please say yodeling.
no.
Darn.
My top 3 favorite artists are probably Taylor Swift, The Killers, and Bleachers.
The Killers is great. I haven't heard the Bleachers, but I'm missing out then, I guess.
They're
and
really
then
good. He's really good.
yeah, I'm
Fun
not
guy.
a Swiftie fan, and it's not Taylor Swift's fault.
No, it's not.
I can't even talk about that story yet. not for a little bit.
Okay.
But we'll get there. All right. Let's see. So at least in the beginning of a relationship, I expected to be dazzled. Sorry. Even if that meant being so distracted by my object of affection that I nearly lost my job and risked my livelihood. So she was looking for a guy that would be like, okay, I would risk my job for this guy. So she's looking for that spark, that instant connection of like, this is the guy I want to be with, right?
Yeah.
So, meanwhile, my unconscious husband's shopping list grew even longer. Like a lot of women, the older I got, the more things I wanted in a guy.
Yeah. It's hard.
Oh, really? So
Because your standards get higher after each person.
you think so?
I think
why is that?
Excuse me. I think your first, the first person you date is going to be really unless you get, lucky and you're choosing to be with them not out of your own wisdom that you've gained from experience, but out of just having feelings for someone who already happens to be really emotionally healthy.
Yeah.
But generally, you're just going to go for the first person who likes you, and you're going to learn a lot from that experience, and it's going to inform how you make decisions in the future, right?
is
So
true.
the first guy was totally he broke up with me, like freaking chump, Okay, after
Yeah.
like 2.5 years.
Oh, I bet you were upset about that.
I cried over him. Freaking idiot. And
Doofus.
then the next guy, you know, objectively a lot better. A big step up. Treated me well, but it was just not, we were incompatible. It was never going to work. Right.
That's the one I know, right?
And now, yeah.
Okay.
And then the next guy, a step up from the first one, much more compatible than the last one, but still has his issues.
Sure.
So it's like each time it's like you learn from the past, from your past mistakes, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to be in a relationship with someone who treats me this way.
And hopefully we can get to it in time, but where's the line on, okay, how do you take away the right things from a failed relationship and not take away the wrong thing? So like some girls, and we've talked about it the whole time we've been talking tonight, was like some girls get overly scared of like, okay, he's cheating because the last couple of guys cheated on him. So how do you take away the right things from a failed relationship? You know, like how do you process that?
Like, you know? The right things, meaning what?
So like, okay, well, here's why the relationship failed. Instead of taking like, well, all men are cheaters, all men are scumbags, instead of taking that into the next relationship, how do you take the things like, okay, these are the real things I need to be looking for, and like, okay, and then you reset, like, not all guys are like this, just the guy I chose that one time. Like, how do you take the right things from that failed relationship, like the actual learning experiences, and not just take the wrong things of like, okay, all guys are scumbags. Well, if he takes too long in the bathroom, he's cheating. You know what I mean? How do you separate?
Like, how do you not carry with you?
Yeah, the baggage, I guess.
Yeah, the baggage.
The really bad baggage, like.
I think that takes a lot of like working on yourself and like looking inwards and being really introspective and like having conversations with yourself.
Yeah.
Like, for each relationship that you're in, I don't think you should ever blame yourself, even though I just called myself an idiot 10 seconds ago. It's like,
we're all self-deprecating.
Yeah.
To an
like
extent.
there was no way for 18-year-old Heather to skip from where she was at to the mentality that 27-year-old Heather is at now, without going through everything she went through.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
There was no way for me to end the relationship with that guy. His name was, coming out of it with the wisdom that I have now.
Yeah.
It's like you just have to look at each relationship as a learning experience and focus on your growth. It's like I don't regret dating Clay. If I hadn't dated him, I would have been going into college and a secular school with zero dating experience.
Yeah.
You know, which college is just hookup culture.
Sure.
A guy would try to hook up with me, and then I would think that he liked me because we were kissing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then he would ghost me, and it would really hurt my feelings because when you're homeschooled and Christian,
right,
homeschoolers, you know, date for life. They mate for life.
No kidding.
Yeah. They get married at like 20 years old, right?
Yeah.
And so then that was like a huge learning curve of just like participating in hookup culture and understanding that people might talk to you and text you and Snapchat you for a month or two and then hook up with you and then totally ghost you. And that was another learning curve that I had to have. And it's like, yeah, I made a lot of mistakes, but the mistakes I feel like are why I'm a little bit healthier now. Is because I was allowed the opportunity to work through those and grow from them.
I tell you, I don't know if this is good or bad, but there was something I was taking away from people who had hurt me in the past, and I was carrying it into how my current relationship which is about to lead to marriage. So a lot of women, when they would freak out, they'd have a freak out moment with me. Typically, was like they would start to be distant. And they would freak out and just kind of end things with me. They would break up with me on the spot. So, the last girl I told you about, not Grace, which was my last girlfriend. There's a girl in between that. You know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
She, I didn't say her last name.
So, yeah.
Yeah. She acted weird and like how she treated me. And so like when she was acting weird over text, I picked up on it immediately. Because, like, I recognized it.
Yeah.
I smelled it from miles away. Like, she's acting weird.
Yeah.
You know? And so there was a point with, you know, hope she doesn't mind me sharing this, but there's a point with Maddie where she started texting the same weirdness that I got from from all the people beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I smell the, here it comes.
Yep.
She's about to do the thing again. She's going to create distance or break up. And she didn't, but I carried that bias into the next thing.
Yeah.
I would say that's a negative thing I carried over into the future relationships. Like, I don't know. I would say that's a negative thing I carried over was like, I jumped to that conclusion of, oh, she's acting weird. She's about to be crazy like the other girls before her.
And I think everyone has baggage. Like, I have baggage from, like, so when I was in college, there was this guy that I was talking to and actively hanging out with for like 3.5 months straight, like 3 times a week. And first of all, I would never do that again. Like, if we're hanging out and texting every day for over a month, we need to define the relationship, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like, I'm not just going to give you all my time. Anyway, so after like 3 months, one day he just like completely ghosted me. And 3 months is kind of a long time. You're kind of invested. So that like was very painful. And especially just like didn't hear anything from him.
That's a big one. 3 months?
Yeah, especially
that's a long
like,
time in homeschool girl Christian years.
yeah. And like my friends were his friends and we were all part of the same friend group. And it was like,
that sounds messy.
Yeah, because I was still friends with our mutual friend. And then he like turned around and started dating our friend's roommate. And that like, oh my God, the feeling of rejection from that was so strong.
That sounds awful.
Because he was like, acted like he was like so into me, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so that like whenever people like don't respond or ignore my texts in like a romantic scenario, that's something that I carry with me is like,
right.
If you don't text me back for the day, that those feelings of rejection are going to bubble up and I'm going to get really mad at you for making me feel ignored because that's something that I carry with me. So it's like,
yeah,
but I just have to be aware of that, you know?
Absolutely. No, I think so I'm surprised. Like I already knew you as a person before this show, right? But I'm surprised at how well you process things. Like it's actually surprised the heck out of me.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, no.
So it's okay to have some baggage as long as you're aware and like trying to continually grow and work from it.
Yeah. So let's see. Okay, that answers my question for the prologue. So I'll go ahead and keep reading. I think. Okay, a different kind of love story. Sorry, guys. So she says right here, she's getting ready to talk to her editor. She wrote an article. So this book originally was an article she wrote for The Atlantic. Okay. And then the article did so well that she ended up writing this whole book on it. So she said, I didn't know if I had it in me to go on another date ever. Like, if you've gotten to that point where you're like, I can't do this anymore.
You know what I mean? That's part of why I can't do online dating.
After I was so done. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, she's supposed to be like I'm not gonna say her last name, but I'm getting very detailed now. Like anyone who knows me knows who I'm talking about.
Yeah. Sorry, listeners.
Yeah, sorry, listeners.
If you know.
Pastor's kid. Mm-hmm. So I expected a little bit more maturity here. And she was
the most immature people I know.
This could be the beer.
I work at a church.
This is the beer talking. She was also like almost 40. So a little bit.
I forgot about that.
A little bit of an age gap.
Sure.
I expected just a little bit more, like from someone who's almost 40, pastor's kid, still living with her pastor parents.
Yeah.
Sorry, pastor parents. Just some maturity, just a little bit. You know what I mean? And I was so when she was when that whole situation was resolved. I'm slurring my words here.
Resolved.
When that situation was resolved, I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. The dating sucks and I hate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does.
You know what I mean? So I'm glad we're out of that.
It's horrible.
And I hope we stay out of it.
Yeah.
So anyway, she talks about, I don't know why I highlighted this. It's not that relevant. So she ends up, the author, she had a kid through a sperm donor. Okay. And so she's like, I'll have it, because she was running out of time. And she's like, hey, I'll have a kid and then I'll find true love later. Okay, cool. Right. Blah, 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 blah.
How old was she?
She was 37.
Oh, yeah. I'd probably do a sperm donor at that point.
All right. Yeah. So, okay. Sorry. Unrelated to this book. You want kids then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. Now at dinner with my editor, I couldn't stop laughing. Of course, I was ecstatically in love with my child. But let's face it, things weren't so romantic over in the Gottlieb household. That's her last name. Like my married friends with small children, I was sleep deprived, cranky, and overwhelmed. But unlike them, I was doing it all alone.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure, sometimes they complained about their husbands. And at first, I felt proud of my decision to not end up like them in
Mm-hmm.
what seemed like less than ideal marriages with less than ideal spouses, right? She's proud that she didn't settle, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't take long before I realized that none of them would trade places with me for a second. Okay. In fact, despite their complaints, they actually were very happy. In many cases, happier than they'd ever been. All those things that had seemed so important when they were dating now had little relevance in their lives. Instead, the idea of choosing to run a household together, as unglamorous and challenging as mundane as that was, uh, it seemed to be the ultimate act of true love. Why hadn't I looked for marriage that way 5 years ago? Okay. So she's saying, like, the people that are complaining about their husbands are like, like, even though they're complaining, they wouldn't trade with her. Like, they don't want to be single again and dating and trying to do all the weird stuff.
Yeah.
Another thing to highlight was her list. Like, they didn't care about that list anymore. Like, all that stuff was done because they were married, and that's not what they were really focused on. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that list,
It's like
like,
hypothetical at
it
that
didn't
point.
it didn't matter, like, at that point, because
Yeah.
they were already married and it was done. Like, they're more concerned about raising family and kids, right?
There's this huge movement of like self-empowerment and like don't ever settle and like stand up for yourself and don't put up with someone who doesn't treat you right, but you get out into the real world, boots on the ground, and it kind of feels like where actually is that person. And also it's like you kind of feel like you're kind of stuck choosing between settling and being alone forever. Either way, you're screwed.
Yeah,
like you said.
exactly.
So it's like maybe there's like some small chance, some, timeline out there where you're in the right place at the right time. And like Paul and Darcy, where you really just find true love without even trying,
Yeah,
But I think for most people, it's a lot more complicated than that.
absolutely.
And it's like, do I stay single forever? Do I settle? Or do I hold out the hope until I'm in, nearing 40 that I am going to find that like
The Prince
person
Charming, the
that I
one.
never leave the honeymoon phase with?
Right. So yeah, her friend said that if I settled at 39, I would always have the fantasy that something better exists out there.
Yeah.
So she says, I remember being surprised that my friend, a smart and attractive producer, was basically saying she would have settled. But she explained that I had it all wrong. She didn't mean resigning herself to a life of quiet misery with a man she cared little about. She meant opening herself up to a fulfilling life with a great guy who might not have possessed every quality on her checklist. In her 30s, she told me she used to consider settling to mean anything less than her ideal guy. But now in her 40s, she'd come to realize that she'd been confusing settling with compromising.
Yeah.
Which is what you and I have been talking about this whole time. You know what
Yes. That's like the key word that our culture likes to leave out nowadays.
Missing. Totally missing.
Completely out of the conversation.
Absolutely.
It's all about me. It's all about how is this serving me? It's all about like, which to some degree is like good because historically women especially have probably stayed in relationships that were very unhealthy, right? And it's good to be aware and like value yourself and know your worth. But you still have to include the idea of compromise because relationships can't function without compromise.
That is very true. So, let's see. I'd come to the same conclusion. I started asking myself some important questions. What's the difference between settling and compromising? When it comes to marriage, what can we live with and what can we live without? How long does it make sense to hold out for someone better whom we may never find and who may not exist or be available to us even if we did, when we could be happy with the person right in front of us? Now, take that. We're talking about the guy you're dating, and I'm talking about the person in front of me over there.
Sure.
Yeah, this wasn't a big setup to like. Anyway, whether or not these people went to marriage head over heels in love, there seemed to be little difference in how happy they were now. That hit me really hard. So it's like whether or not they were like the spark was there, it didn't matter because when they're married, it's like it makes little difference now how happy they are. Both kinds of marriages seem to be working or not working equally well or poorly. Meanwhile, the women I spoke to who are single and unhappy about their single state were still nixing guys who are obsessed with sports or too short because they figured that if they married the short guy who didn't read novels, right, they'd be unsatisfied in that marriage. Yet the women who had done just that weren't. So she's like this.
Next thing, the disdain for short guys is literally so infuriating.
Why is that?
Because
as a short man, I want to hear this.
Because some of the best guys I know are not that tall. One guy, sorry if you're listening, I guess you're gonna find out.
Just don't say his name. Do I know him?
That I worked with for a long time.
I don't know him. Go ahead, say his name.
So like we were part of this friend group at my job, right?
Yeah.
And then everyone in the friend group left the job at Chick-fil-A and went on to other things. And then when I was in college, he and I were the only people still working at Chick-fil-A that were part of that friend group. And so we grew a lot closer because like now instead of there being 6 of us, it's just me and him, who had that original connection of like the years and years of working there, right? Yeah. And like we would play these like pranks on like the younger kids at Chick-fil-A, the new kids, the new hires, all the teenagers. We would like pretend to be in a relationship and have all these like really toxic fights. And he'd be like, "Babe, stop!" And I'd like storm out the door, storm into the kitchen, and we were gonna pull this prank of like putting a fake postcard on the door of like me holding a baby and like him like he got me pregnant while I was away at college or something.
Oh my God,
we never did it,
this
but
is intricate.
It would have been hilarious.
This is very intricate.
Yeah, so funny.
Yeah.
But like kind of throughout that time, I did kind of start to like him.
Yeah.
Genuinely,
sure.
But he was like 5'7", and he's like literally one of the most confident people I know. Like,
yeah.
Honestly, like if everything went wrong in my relationship now, I would still consider him as like a candidate. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
But a lot of people aren't like that. Like so many people discount just the short guy, and we're not going to get to it tonight. But chapter 1, she sits down. A lot
of tall guys I know are egotistical assholes.
Yeah, and like heck, if I was taller, I'd be that guy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like I'm a 10 in every area except the height department.
Yeah, just discounting someone for any kind of physical quality is so stupid in my opinion.
So she gets in chapter 1. She sits down with a panel of 20-year-olds, and they're like, a guy walks by, and he's a great looking guy, but he's like, they're like too short. And she's like, what the heck? And then she pulls in a panel of like 30 and 40-year-old women who have been single, obviously, a long time. And then she's like, so that guy that just walked by, what do you think? Oh, he'd be perfect marriage material. Like, oh, you don't care? He's too short? No, we cared when we were 20. But, I mean, we're still single after discounting all those really good guys. And, like, him being short's like the least of our issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, anyway.
For the record, my boyfriend is shorter than me.
Yeah.
By, like, at least a couple inches.
It's very important.
And I think I am so attracted to him. I think he's so fine.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. He makes me delirious if I stare at him for too long.
You hear that, short kings? Your time is coming.
I love his long hair and his beard.
This is a discussion.
And his abs.
This is a discussion we should have, but about shooting your shot, even if they're out of your league physically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think if a girl's taller than you, in a way, unless she's like not that pretty, like in a way, if a girl's taller than you, she's almost out of your league just because of the stigma of being a short guy. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I disagree because...
But most women don't. Most women discount a guy because of their height.
Yeah.
You're right. But because of how society's set up, if you're short, you're kind of automatically disqualified.
Sometimes I feel like I have more in common with short guys because it's like I know what it's like to not fit the blueprint of like what man and female counterpart are supposed to look like together.
I know I've already said this a bunch of times, but you are way out of. You're not
a lot of people's leagues.
No, you don't think about. Well, you don't have any problems in the confidence department.
My flaw is being humble.
You don't think the same way most girls do, and that's a good thing because like you're very, you're very realistic, and you're also like, you don't disqualify somebody just because of one thing that bugs you. Like you actually look at the situation as a whole. And you look at the totality of a person before you're like, okay, yeah, I'll go out with them. You give people a fair shot is what I'm trying to say.
Thanks.
You know what I mean? But most girls and a lot of girls don't.
Oh yeah, it's horrible how prevalent it is.
And like I said, in chapter 1, she sits down with the panel.
Against short guys.
Yeah, and like she sits down with the panel of 20-year-olds and like just pick one flaw and like, no, I'll find someone better. You know what I mean? You don't have that. You don't have that problem.
The only one flaw that I would absolutely not tolerate is if a guy was like really jealous. Like I would never
Right.
date a guy like that ever again.
And that's something you learned though from that first guy.
Yeah.
And that's something you carried over, like something
Yeah.
you learned that you carried over into how you look for a guy now.
I would also never date a guy who's like overly religious and judgmental
Oh, yeah.
again. Like was.
I'm too much. Oh, you said his name.
Sorry.
Bleep that out, Shaps.
Bleep.
Yeah. Like blank was? Holy cow.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you learn something from both relationships. So and those are real disqualifiers. I like those. Those weren't like, oh, come on now. Like, what are your expectations, girl?
Because I can't relate to those people. Well, I can't relate to the latter.
Like, I like cigars. I like drinking. If Maddie had problems with that, I don't think we would have worked out. Even though we click so well, we have such great chemistry.
Yeah. Bleep didn't even like that I had gay friends.
And I can tone down.
And I was like,
oh yeah, no, that's too much. And I can tone down some stuff. Like I don't need a cigar, and I don't have to drink as much. But like I can't just like not do stuff I like to do. You know what I mean? There's a healthy line
for sure.
So all right, what if I want a different 8? She's talking about 8 out of 10s. What if I want a different 8 out of 10? Right. So she wrote the article, and she was expecting to get. She was worried about a couple things. She was like, one, what if people take my advice and they hate their life and they get divorced? 2, what if people like strongly disagree? She was worried about the negative stuff, right? So she says, then I got an email from a single woman who wrote that she wasn't looking for the perfect 10, but an 8 would be great. I agree with that. 8s are good, right? But then she said, here's the problem she has, though, when she's dating 8s. What if I want a different 8? Then I realized that's exactly my problem, and so many other women's too. She agreed that she should be looking for Mr. Good Enough, who exists, instead of Prince Charming, who doesn't exist. But she didn't know how to make it work in practice, and neither did I. It was like, okay, when you're dating a guy who's good enough, what if there's a guy who's also good enough in most of the areas, but just what if there's someone better? Like that's a tough one. Like that's
the pool of good enough is a lot vaster than the pool of perfect.
Right, and that's a fair question. Yeah. Like I'm not mad at that person.
So it's like, okay, I do have more options.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna go for the 8.
Right.
So which 8 do I go for? Because now I feel a little picky.
So she says, at first, I didn't either. I spent a lot of time kicking and screaming in denial of the fact. Oh, wait, I skipped ahead. Sorry, backwards. So she says, I'll warn you that you may not like some of these experts had to say. At first, I didn't either, and I spent a lot of time kicking and screaming in denial of the facts. But eventually, I realized that knowledge was power, and that this journey changed me and my dating life profoundly. It could change yours too. Because in the end, I discovered that finding a guy to get real with is the true love story. Okay.
To get real with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A guy to get real with. And that is the end of the prologue. We're not even on chapter 1.
Oh, my God.
It is an hour and 15 minutes in, and I'm afraid tonight we'll have to call it quits on that. Yeah, that's the prologue. Sorry, guys. I tried to keep this at an hour long. That was a 45-minute discussion. That's crazy.
It's just getting good.
I know. It's just getting spicy. Maybe we can have you on for the next chapter at some point. That'll be a couple weeks. So
yeah.
I don't know.
I'd be down.
Yeah, cool.
I love talking about this stuff.
I hope you had
this
fun.
is something that I feel not like an expert in, but that I've thought a lot about.
I will close out with something here. So when I was deep and dark in a sad phase after having just had not my heart broken because I wasn't really invested in her, but I was really butthurt about the whole thing with the situation. I'll let Shaps decide whether or not to bleep her name out. I get that.
You're just tired of things not working out.
Right. And I was sitting there low and sad about it and frustrated. And me and Heather were sitting in the parking lot talking.
I remember that.
And she said, you know what, Caleb, though? Why'd you go for Brittany? You're out of her league. And that was really inspiring to me. Thank you so much for saying that.
You're
I
welcome.
never thought I'd have someone attractive tell me I was out of someone's league. So with that, we will say goodnight. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm still tipsy from this 3rd beer I had. So I do apologize for slurring some of my words. I hope this discussion made sense to y'all. I hope that y'all had a good time sitting here listening. If you made it to the end of this, cool for you. That's awesome. But if not, I don't know what to say. You're not listening. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys had a good time. Thank you, Heather, for hopping on. I hope you had a good time. Maybe we'll have you on for chapter 1. That'd be sick.
I'd love to.
Yeah, I've been reading, so it'll be good. See you guys next time. Thanks for joining us this week.
Thanks, guys.
See you around. Bye.